Welcome, everyone. I'm Gordon Masterton, current master of the Worshipful Company of Engineers. I'm a civil engineer by background, so a very, very warm welcome to you all and a Happy New Year. At some point, those three words might carry a convincing sincerity, but the virus is doing its best at the moment to confound that, unfortunately. But it's really important that we do all we can to continue our business in as near to normal alternative activity as we possibly can, and to continue with our activities, continue with our interests, continue with our businesses as best we can, and recognize that there are ways to lift our spirits in the process. And lifting our spirits is what we've been trying to do in the company since March last year. As you'll hear from my colleagues in the presentation this evening, we've had quite an active programme despite the circumstances, and that's deliberately so, to cement the bonds of friendship between our members in the company in the true spirit of the Livery movement. And tonight, it'll be our task to introduce the Livery, to introduce the company, what we do, how we behave, and we'll give you a flavour of our activities, and we'll explain to you next steps towards joining, if you like what you hear from us this evening. And here's the programme. We'll have 4 short talks after me, and then we will give you the opportunity to join smaller breakout rooms. Now, I'm delighted to hand over to Court Assistant Sir Michael Bear. And Sir Michael is not just any court assistant, because Sir Michael is a previous Lord Mayor of the City of London. I bet you didn't expect that. Sir Michael is the third of our membership to have so served as Lord Mayor, and that's a record that we're extremely proud of. Sir Michael will, after his talk on the Livery movement, will hand over to Middle Warden Audrey Canning, who's chair of our membership committee. And Audrey, in turn, will hand over to the chairman of the Engineers Trust, Past Master David Johnson, who will in turn hand over to our clerk, Colonel David Swann. And then David will hand back to me to close before we split you up into the breakout rooms. So I'm delighted now to hand over to past Lord Mayor, Sir Michael Bear.
Thank you very much, Master. And could I also extend a very warm welcome to you all tonight. I have the privilege of making the first presentation this evening. You could say I'm the icebreaker, something this bear is quite used to. Well, as the 683rd Lord Mayor of our great city of London and court member of the Worshipful Company of Engineers, I'm going to introduce you to the worshipful companies of the City of London, the London Livery. I shall be starting by giving a helicopter view of the Livery, and I will then go on to cover some of the important details with 6 slides. The fascinating history of livery companies reaches back many centuries. Livery companies have their roots in the medieval trades and crafts, and yet with their ability to grow and adapt to meet new needs, their work is as relevant today as ever. They support and in some cases regulate their trades. They help to educate and train young people, and they spend the income of which they are trustees to help people all over the world. As a former Lord Mayor and head of the Livery, I had the privilege of seeing this first-class work firsthand. Individual companies vary significantly in their age, beginnings, size, wealth, and approach to the modern world. Some have origins which date back to the 12th and 13th centuries, while others have been founded in the past 20 years. Some are still active in their original trades, others less so or not at all. Some are wealthy, most are not. Some have names that some people may not recognize. The Lauriners, the Paviers, the Cordwainers, the Curriers, to mention a few. Others have more contemporary titles, such as information technologists, management consultants, and of course, engineers, one of the most dynamic, active, and relevant of the livery companies, even though I say so myself. Livery companies probably had their origins in this country before 1066 and are similar to the fraternities and guilds or mysteries that flourished throughout Europe for many centuries. The term mystery is still in use and derives from the Latin mysterium, meaning professional skill. Many major cities throughout Britain had craft guilds, some of which still exist, including the Cutlers of Hallamshire in Sheffield, the Merchant Venturers in Bristol, and the Fellmongers of Richmond in Yorkshire. And of course, in both Scotland and Ireland, there's a very strong guild tradition, which is still very active. These historic trade associations operated within the confines of the city walls. They evolved when London essentially developed as two cities, Westminster, its royal, administrative and religious centre, and the city, its trading and residential centre. They were founded to be responsible for apprenticeships, working conditions, members' welfare, wage regulation, industry standards, and support in sickness and old age. And many almshouses were established by them. Workers, of course, lived in close proximity in clusters with their competitors. And to this day, the City of London has names such as Milk Street, Bread Street, Ironmonger Lane, Poultry, Cloth Fair, and Mason's Avenue to mark the sites where it all began. People following the same craft or trade tended to live and work near each other, and they began to make informal arrangements amongst themselves for regulating competition and keeping professional standards. Members paid to belong, and the word guild derives from the Saxon gilden, meaning to pay. The phrase worshipful derives from the close proximity which led to practicing faith together, though nowadays members are free to follow any faith or none. And livery denoted the clothing or the food or drink or hospitality in great households at the time, and then became used to describe the clothing and badges to denote specific rank and privilege. London's guilds became known as livery companies, and it's still very much the custom to wear ceremonial dress on official civic occasion. The modern livery movement thrives. Our main purpose is to promote or reflect our trade, craft, or profession. And this is achieved through actively supporting philanthropic, charitable, and educational good causes, fostering fellowship amongst our members, and supporting the work of the Lord Mayor and the City of London. The links to the City of London are extremely important. The livery companies and the City of London have grown up together, developing and adapting over the centuries to help sustain London's preeminence as a financial and business centre. They share many goals and objectives and work closely together on issues of city importance. The election of the sheriffs and certain other officers is the prerogative of liverymen alone, and the election of the Lord Mayor of the City of London is a shared responsibility between liverymen and the city aldermen. Livery companies are the source of and take a prominent part in many of the great ceremonial occasions and add a colour and richness to the city's heritage, effectively being the custodians of tradition. As the Master said, we've had 3 Lord Mayors from our great company, the Engineers. Sir Peter Gadsden, 40 years ago, Sir Francis McWilliams, 30 odd years ago, and myself, 10 years ago. And we're looking for the next. So if you're interested in going this particular route, it's a wonderful thing to do, then I can certainly show you the ropes and mentor you along the way. And you can see it's a very high profile role. The Daily Telegraph showed that Ursine humour is not lost. The city gets a Lord Mayor who can bear the weight of expectation. I haven't lived that one down completely. Livery companies have quite impressive statistics. We call them the brag stats, and it shows what a force for good this movement is. 110 livery companies to date, with over 26,000 liverymen operating out of 40 livery halls. There were more in before the Fire of London, but many were lost at that time. Impressive affiliations: 153 schools and colleges, 65 churches, 216 armed forces units, and 101 cadet units. And the charitable giving is also very impressive. And Over the years, it's exceeded £60 million per year. Joining the company, you get freedom of the City of London. That was the old license to trade in the city. It now comes in a nice framed arrangement there, but in the old days, you put it in the red pouch on the left and carried it with you, and that was your license to trade in the city. The three methods of obtaining freedom was by servitude or apprenticeship, by redemption or purchase or nomination, that's what we offer through the livery, or patrimony, and that's children born to an admitted freeman. You can see in the little blue box there that gives you the freedom to trade, the freedom to be free of certain taxes in the market, free of press gangs, and you can, of course, as you know, if you were a butcher, you could take your sheep across London Bridge, but that's if you get past the police, which is not always that easy these days when you're taking sheep. And of course, people don't realise that if you committed murder and you were to be hung, you could choose a silk rope, so it was less painful apparently. So finally, the involvement of such a diverse group of trades, crafts and professions in all aspects of work of the city is part of its inherent success and vibrancy. The important role still held in maintaining standards and supporting education and welfare means that the livery companies will continue to have a central position in the life of the City of London and the nation. And it rests, without saying, with each liveryman, hopefully yourselves, if you choose to join, to continue in this determination to be useful in this way and enterprising. Thank you very much. And could I now hand over to our middle warden, Audrey Canning, who will introduce you to the Engineers Company. Thank you, Audrey.
Okay, so thank you very much, Sir Michael. As noted, I'm Audrey Canning, the current middle warden of the Worshipful Company of Engineers. And I want to explain to you what we are and why you should join us. I will cover the governance structure, our duties as liverymen of the City of London, and our activities. Or in other words, why I find it so much fun. We are the 94th livery company of the City of London, and we gained our Royal Charter in 2004, the first to be granted in 6 years. We are all chartered engineers, recognised by the Engineering Council, and many of us hold fellowships of our institutions, or else of the Royal Academy of Engineering. We actively encourage involvement of our partners, many of whom also have had numerate or cultural careers. Just as an example, I'd like to introduce you to 25 of our 30 women members. Between them, they hold directorships of 6 leading organisations: Quest Investments, Polypipe, Sellafield, MTC, Billfinger and Arup. Some are recognised as technical authorities in their own right, including the Head of Engineering for the Royal Navy Aviation Authority, the Deputy Vice-Chancellor of Cambridge University, and the International Standardisations Leader for Computer System Safety. Others are highly sought after for their management experience or for encouragement of engineers in society. And I haven't even started on our 300 gentlemen. Our activities cross the traditional engineering boundaries. Naturally, we have many members from the 4 main institutions, but we also have experts from other smaller institutions, including the British Computer Society, the Energy Institute, the Safety and Reliability Society, and the Royal Institution of Navigation, to name but a few. In line with the livery traditions, we have 3 main aims. The first being to support the education of engineers and to promote their achievements through recognising excellence. We do this by sponsorship through the Engineers Trust. Past Master David will speak more on this later. Our second aim is to represent the profession to the City of London and to influence its activities. Over the past few years, we have implemented this mainly through engineering events, holding technical seminars of interest to wider city investment, such as the threat of cybersecurity, directions for the low carbon economy, and most recently, opportunities for investment in space science, which we held jointly with the International Bankers Livery. In a month's time, we're holding a city event on infrastructure futures, the theme of this year's Master Engineer. More recently, we are seeking to influence the city through briefings on current affairs to key city figures, such as the sheriffs and the Lord Mayor, who in turn have a remit to travel the globe representing city interests, and then even through mentorship of our own members to help them to aspire to city office. And lastly, we aspire to fellowship with like-minded engineers, particularly in prestigious city venues, more of that later, but also in regional settings, through our out-of-town visits to sites of engineering interest and through our engineering heritage walks. Our organisation is run by a formal board, known as the Court, which comprises the 4 main office holders for a 1-year term each: the Master, Senior Warden, Middle Warden and Junior Warden. Each have responsibility for one aspect of the company's health, covering finance and policy, membership, our programme of events, and of course, under the Master, setting the overall company direction. They are supported by members of the Livery elected to the Court by the membership and known as Court Assistants. Past Masters and others who have served with eminence on the Court provide a steadying hand. There are 2 honorary members, the Clerk, effectively our CEO, and the Chaplain, responsible for philanthropic support to our members. We also have a formal court year, comprising 5 court meetings, 4 eminent dining nights, the installation, the wards night, the annual banquet, and the carol service, which is held in the Tower of London, and an annual cycle to select and incorporate those who will become responsible for future governance. One notable event, run entirely by the Master and his partner, is the out-of-town meeting, usually held just before the start of the academic year, where we spend 2.5 days focusing on regional engineering achievements, in line with that year's Master's interest and career. We also have roles and responsibilities within the City of London. As Freemen of the City and Liverymen of the Worshipful Company of Engineers, we are responsible for electing the city officials, the sheriffs, who administer the Old Bailey and law courts, the Lord Mayor, and various office holders within the corporation itself. And we are also involved in securing the city's charitable activities, comprising funds of around 60 million per year, as well as significant pro bono work, utilising the skills, ability and time donated by Livery members. So what do we get in return? Well, in promoting the city, we get opportunities to influence directions and be present at prestigious technical meets held in the impressive city halls and other locations. Here, for example, including the Worshipful Company of Information Technologists, where we held a debate on policing the city, to the Ironmongers Hall for the Master's lecture, Back to the Future, to the Wellington, a boat secured just inside the city, where we heard from the Royal Navy's Engineering Authority on the commissioning of the new aircraft carrier, the HMS Prince of Wales, through to my junior warden's lecture at the Royal Astronomical Society on computer systems and safety, where we considered issues such as the Boeing 737 MAX and the increasing use of autonomy and artificial intelligence. More recently, we have visited Toshiba Labs in Cambridge to hear about quantum computing, and the Guildhall, where we invited the international bankers to debate the economic opportunities of investment in the low-carbon economy. We also enable the continuing technical engagement and broadening of the engineering experience of our members through technical visits to a wide range of different venues. You can see some of the more recent visits here, ranging from a trip to view the Large Hadron Collider at CERN during a maintenance shutdown, through to construction of the Crossrail stations, through to visits to Cosford, Brize Norton and submarine bases, and to being the last group to visit the Northern Line tunnel boring machines, Amy and Helen, just before they were lowered below ground. Of course, the last 9 months have somewhat clipped our wings, but that hasn't stopped us enjoying our technical and social life. We held our first virtual engineering soiree just 5 days into lockdown. It focused on the ventilator crisis, where we embrace the challenge of being the first livery company to support the city and the Lord Mayor in addressing the COVID pandemic. In fact, several of our members led in two initiatives, one to deliver CPAP machines to the NHS, the other in development of mobile field ventilators for use in emerging economies. They did at the time and have continued to provide their engineering experience, often on a pro bono basis, to these initiatives. Since late April, we have continued to hold 2 weekly technical soirees, drawing on the expertise of our members. The soirees have covered topics as diverse as the lifts of London, the ship that never was, developments in fusion power, London's lost underground stations, radar against the U-boats, and tonight's topic of animal-inspired robotics. Not to mention our virtual visits to a Crossrail depot, our junior warden's lecture on technical innovation, and a presentation on the strategic directions in low-carbon technology. And we have extended our social activities to include informal Zoom suppers on a roughly monthly basis, as well as wine tasting, and I promise we can convert this also into whiskey tasting, 2 formal events, our awards ceremony and a black tie Christmas dinner with carols. And in 2 weeks' time, we're organising a Burns night supper, officiated by our own master, all without leaving our own homes. Of course, once COVID restrictions are relaxed, we are looking forward to resuming our formal events, once again having the opportunity to dine in some of the most impressive venues in London, including, for example, Draper's Hall, where you can dine amongst iconic former monarchs, to Clothworkers Hall, with its amazing musicians gallery, where we've heard many types of compositions, such as the horn duet, barbershop, military bands and chamber orchestras. In the lower pictures, you can see us at Waterman's Hall and the Barber Surgeon's Hall, taking great pleasure in the livery tradition of the Loving Cup, a tradition dating back to Saxon times following the murder of King Edward the Martyr. Although I do have to say, from the looks of the master in this picture, he's far from confident that the practice will be proof against today's threats. And of course, we hold our annual banquet at the Mansion House, where unfortunately they don't allow us to take photos, so I can't show you the insides. But just in case you think we're too London-centric, our annual out of town and an increasing number of mini out of towns provide an opportunity to see more regional engineering successes. For example, our out of town to Leeds allowed us to visit traditional cloth manufacturing areas, as well as to dine in the town hall. In Bath, we visited formal houses and dined in the hall at the Roman Baths. In Scotland, we visited ancient castles and travelled through the awe-inspiring countryside of Glencoe and Loch Lomond. In Derbyshire, we visited Torside Reservoir, Chatsworth House, and the Royal Crown Derby Pottery. Most recently in Plymouth, we were able to dine in the officers' mess after a moving lowering the flag service. And just to show you we're not too stuffy, at times we do let our hair down, for example, at this last night disco or at Cayley. We organise around 4 to 5 informal events per year, mainly driven by individual members' interests and their willingness to arrange. Until a couple of years ago, we were active in city sports, including golf and shooting, where one of our partners turned out to be an ace, winning the cup for us on multiple occasions. More recently, we have undertaken some 2 to 3 engineering heritage visits and walks a year, including visiting the longest flight of locks in the UK, fortunately walking downhill, to a free mine in the Forest of Dean, where we learnt how to mine a coal seam, through to trips to heritage railways, including the Bluebell and the Iron Bridge museums, to charcoal burning in the New Forest, and iconic London sites, such as the Thames Barrier and the complex geology of the London Basin. We do not forget our partners, including, I would add, my husband, in events organised both by the City Livery and by our own company. The picture shows the partners' annual lunch held on the Wellington, the only City Livery company to be a ship rather than a ground-based structure. Last but not least, we have the opportunity to be involved in wider city events, including services at St Paul's, the Lord Mayor's Show, and the annual sheep drive across London Bridge. We are also often invited to take part in other livery company events, which cover a wide diversity of different cultural and historical interests. We get the opportunity to influence the directions of the city and to explain the importance of engineering to its wealth creation. We can influence support for our engineering aims, both for our own members and for the wider interest in promoting the profession of engineering and its educational base. And now I'd like to introduce Past Master David, who will tell you more about our charitable activities.
Thank you, Audrey. I'd like to spend a few minutes just talking about the charitable activities of the company and talk about also the Honorary Chaplain and Almoner and their particular role. Now, the charitable activities of the company are really what some would say is what the livery companies are about. It's actually a very big part of what we do as livery companies. And accordingly, we have something called the Engineers Trust, which is a modern name, if you like, for a charitable fund that holds our money. But the charitable trust fund that we have set up has really done quite well, considering the age of our company being quite young, that we've currently got in investments about 1.7 million. I've put a plus or minus 200,000 there because, as everyone is probably aware, the markets in which these investments are held are in a real state of flux at the moment. So whilst we used to be able to quote a very accurate figure for how much money we were holding, these days we have to look at it and say that provided it's within those bounds, then we have to remain comfortable with it. Just to let you know where we get our income from, everything that we've got in our fund has come from our own members. If you look at the breakdown of that, we get about £40,000 a year from regular giving from our members. Some people give quite a lot of money, some people will give very small amounts of money, but nevertheless, in total, about £40,000 per year. And we normally get about £50,000 income from our investments, which we're never sure of at the moment, but we have a long-term view of things. And our trust strategy is very much about looking at making sure that we pay out from the trust at an affordable level. And looking at the figures we had in 2019, we received in that year £100,000 in legacies. And again, we are very fortunate that some of our members do think of us after they've departed. And in fact, our biggest legacy that we received once was for £500,000, which is spent on a specific fund, which I shall come to shortly. In terms of our expenditure, the figures we have for 2019, remembering that we're only just putting together figures for 2020, but for 2019 we actually spent £114,000 on charitable activities, and we had a governance cost of around £29,000. Now that might seem a little high, but we have to remember that in our governance costs we also have investment managers fees and various other things, which is very much a part of earning the income that we get from our investments, as well as the costs of running the trust on a day-to-day basis. What I'd like to talk about on this slide is what the trust actually does. And there's some sidelines to some of these activities. It isn't all about just giving money, but we have three fundamental areas that we invest in. One is education, second is excellence, and the third is support. If I go through the education, one of the things that our members are very keen on is the support of younger people. And if you look in the list on the left-hand side, you can see that the starting point is Arkwright scholarships, which includes the school-age people who are looking to go into engineering as a career. We've got IET Horizon bursaries, which are the next level up, which are people who are looking at sponsorship for university education. And this is done through the Institute of Engineering and Technology, who actually fund match what we put into it. Now, an interesting thing about the Horizon bursaries is that it satisfies the need of a lot of our members to actually put something back into the industry, because each one has a mentor from the company. And we have a list of people who love to do mentoring. And if you're joining the company, then one of the things I'd encourage you to be interested in mentoring is to actually look into this award and seeing if you can support that. Leap Premium Award is the big award that we had from a legacy, which is for research sponsorship. And that covers one engineer per year doing a PhD into manufacturing engineering. It's a premium award. It tops up the standard EPSRC grant to a level that makes it affordable and attractive to the right candidate. The various other awards we have there. Stevenson is about rewarding educators. Gadsden is about supporting a trip to an Australian university by an English student and vice versa. And then we have 2 services awards that look at the educational achievements of service people. All of these are actually eligible for becoming associates of the company, which is fundamentally a grade within the company. It's not strictly a grade of membership, but it's something that allows people to stay attached to the company, having won an award, and keep involved in the activities of the company with the hope that one day they will become members of the company themselves. Excellence is about rewarding excellence, literally. McRobert is the largest annual prize that's awarded each year for engineering innovation. It was won this year by JCB for their innovative electric JCB. And it's awarded through the Royal Academy of Engineering and in association with the McRobert Trust. The Worshipful Company is the biggest single sponsor of that outside of the McRobert Foundation themselves. We also support the Royal Academy Young Engineers of the Year Awards, which is 5 young engineers who've achieved absolute excellence. This is judged by the Royal Academy, and the winner wins a Royal Academy medal. But we actually fund the top 5 in this category, and these are about engineering excellence. The remainder are for various other things within specific areas. So, for example, looking at Hawley, which is environment. I like to think that was possibly headed towards the zero carbon agenda. Baroness Platt Award, she was a past member of our company who's left an award. Water Engineering, Mercy is a medical award. Cadzo Smith is another award. And service operational awards, general awards of excellence, which result in people getting cash prizes and medals. And finally, we look at spending money on support, which is really where we put our charitable activities. So Register of Engineers for Disaster Relief is a charitable foundation that supports training of engineers for disaster relief. And we are a patron of that, as we're also a patron of the Iron Bridge Trust, which was originally set up by founder master Sir Peter Gadsden, who was very supportive of the Iron Bridge Trust and represents support for the first cast iron bridge to be built in the world. And we also support Lord Mayor's appeals. I also have to say that we do support hardship amongst members of the company if they, for example, find themselves on hard times. We have supported 1 or 2 people in this area. If the professional institutions that they belong don't have funding for supporting, then we actually have been known to give people funds to allow them to, shall we say, get over temporary hurdles in their life. And I did notice a comment that came up on the chat then that basically was asking about the 40,000 was the income from the membership fees. The answer is no, the membership fees are completely separate from what we get from the trust. The money that we get for the trust is a voluntary contribution from the members specifically to the trust. It can be put in under gift aid, so therefore there is a benefit in doing it independently from the actual company, but none of the quarterage fees from the company actually come towards the trust. The foundation of the trust is that we have 8 company trustees, which includes myself as the chairman. It also includes the ex officio members of the company, which is the master, the immediate past master, and the senior warden. And by having those 3 people on the board of trustees, it does mean we have a constant link between the company and the trust. Senior warden progresses to master, progresses to immediate past master, and in my case, progresses then to chairman of trust. So that does give us a bit of continuity. We've got the honorary chaplain, who is also ex officio, and we have an independent trustee who is actually a member of the Worshipful Company of Actuaries, who really helps us to manage our investments and make sure that we are sufficiently prudent in terms of what we do with the money that's invested, although we do have it invested within a reputable investment house. The trustees serve for 3-year terms of appointment, although it is possible for people to do more than 1 term, and the trust meets 4 times per year. And one thing I would say is at the moment we're undergoing a strategic review of pretty well everything. I took over as chairman of the trust last year. And one of the things I wanted to do was to reevaluate everything we did in terms of what the awards that we gave were in terms of their relevance to today's climate, if that's the right word, looking at the finance, looking at the value, benefits and processes. And the starting point of this was a membership survey to say, what do our members actually want? So that's ongoing at the moment. And one of the things we've achieved so far is to look at our trust deed and work out how we can, for example, save money on various aspects of companies' governance. Finally, I'd like to come on to two characters within our company, our Honorary Chaplain and our Almoner. Now, the Honorary Chaplain is a member of the company in the sense that he is only chaplain to us, and we're very fortunate to have our own chaplain. Of course, we are a multi-faith company in that it doesn't really matter what faith you are, you're welcome to join us. Peter, you'll find as an Honorary Chaplain, will be someone who you could talk to no matter what your faith or whether you haven't got any faith. He's very much there to support the members in times of difficulty and hardship. And I know a number of our members have appreciated his support throughout the year in terms of the pastoral activities. He actually leads 2 services a year for our company. Obviously, being worshipful, we do have services, one of which is what's called our annual service. And the other one is our carol service, which is probably one of the most popular events of the year, which we tend to do in the Tower of London. Although this year we did it remotely, but it still had a very good turnout. As I say, he provides personal support to us, as does the Almoner. And the Almoner is generally looking at members and past members' wives and husbands, for example. So we must remember that ex-members still have partners who have been involved in the company and would wish to carry on with the company after the demise of the member. So the Almoner actually supports that activity and tries to make contact with past members. And we also have a grade called Companions, which is for partners of the company who are not members, but who have been involved in the company and wish to stay involved with us. So what I'd like to do will be to hand over to our clerk, Colonel David Swann, who's going to take you through the next steps about getting involved. Thank you.
Past Master David, thank you very much. And may I extend a virtual hello to those of you who I've met already or corresponded with before this evening. I hope what you've seen and heard thus far, coupled with your already evident interest in the company, and for those of you who will attend this evening's soiree, confirm your wish to indeed become a member. So how do you go about that? Well, you should at some stage have received a copy of our guide to membership, short 4-page document, a list of members and an application form. Those 3 things equate to an application pack to join the company. But if for any reason you didn't receive one, or you might even have misplaced it, just email me at this email address you can see at the bottom, clark@engineerscompany.org.uk, and we'll make sure they are sent to you. So if you are minded to apply, I'll just try and outline now the steps. The first thing I should say, and I'm pretty confident that you all are, is you must be a chartered engineer. To join this company, that is the fundamental requirement, that everybody must be a chartered engineer to become a freeman of the Worshipful Company of Engineers. Confident in that, would you then please fill out an application form, which says a little bit about yourself and your career and your qualifications to date. And it then asks that you identify 3 members of the company to act as your sponsors, one of whom should be a member of the Court of Assistants. Now, don't worry if you don't know 3. It's not the end of the world by any means. The alternative route is a short interview with a panel from the membership committee. And we've been doing those by Zoom in recent months, as you might appreciate. The result of that short session, which is really just a chat between yourselves and some members to find out a little bit more about yourself, confirm your interest, would then result in you being recommended to the court for membership of the company. Once the court has approved your applications, you're then invited to come and make your declaration as a freeman of the company before the court, and that means you are now a member as such. Once you're a freeman of the company, you can then apply to become a freeman of the City of London, the step that Sir Michael outlined earlier on, where you receive the parchment of your freedom of the city. That is a pre-requirement to becoming a liveryman of our company. as is the fact that you must be a fellow of your professional institute or a fellow of the Royal Academy of Engineering. Those are the requirements to advance to becoming a full liveryman, a full member, if you like, of the company, with the voting rights that gives to participate in the governance of the city. And again, as Sir Michael inferred, for those who would be interested in aspiring to office, the venerable office of Lord Mayor, it is a precursor to that path. And once you satisfy those qualifications, you are again invited to come before the master, the wardens and the court of the company, and to be clothed in the livery, physically putting on a liveryman's gown. Now, again, at the moment, we're doing that virtually, but we'll have a flurry, I think, of clothings once we get back to meeting properly later this year, we hope. So further information, and I've spotted in the chat that one thing that hasn't been mentioned thus far is that always slightly unpleasant subject of what does it cost? Well, the guide to membership does explain the costs of joining, the annual subscription, which we call quarterage, and the costs you might expect to pay by attending events, physical events that are run through the year. To join as a freeman, to join the company, we ask for a fine of £200. To advance to the livery, once you're qualified, it's a one-off payment of £500. Those are the joining fees. Then in terms of the quarterage, as a freeman, our quarterage is age-related and starts at £100 for those of 30 years of age and increases by increments to £440 for those who are 50 or above. And the annual quarterage for a liveryman is £525. Now, as I say, those costs are really to join the club and to be a part of it. And as has been hinted already, that the quarterage is our sole source of income for running the business, which is employing me and Sandra, our assistant clerk, and running the company and the various events that we lay on. The cost of dinners does vary. And again, the leaflet tries to give you a feel for that. One of our most smart occasions, as Audrey referred to earlier, the 4 big events of the year, you might expect that an individual ticket would be in the order of £120. For some smaller dinners or lunches, £65 might be the figure. And for some of our seminars that we arrange at the end of the working day, early evening in London, a fee might be of £25 to come to the event, and that will also cover the cost of drinks and nibbles after the event whilst you network. So a range of prices that you can tailor your attendance to suit. And I should say there is no expectation that you would attend every event in the company year. There's no way probably you could do that. It's the unfortunate likes of the master and our wardens who have to lead the flag and try and be at as many things as they can be. But for a member, it's up to you to pick and choose and to make friends and then build your connections. So I think that's probably enough from me at this stage, and I will hand back to the master.
Well, thank you very much, Clerk David. And just to stress, that combination of fellowship, promoting engineering, supporting the next generation of engineers, and fun. We may be engineers, but we do have fun, is a really powerful combination. And I'm sure those who do decide it's for you will have a really enjoyable experience within the company. And I can hardly put it better than the words of Liveryman, the Princess Royal. She said, within this diversity, livery companies are bound by their timeless ethos, which has at its core fellowship, welfare, education, supporting trade, and at all times working in the best interests of the communities in which they operate. So that's us. We hope that has given you a fairly thorough exposure. Thank you for your attention.